Okay, meeting's called to order, and we're going to start the meeting with, Diane and Connie passed out a criteria for committee vote on recommendations, and it's something for the full committee to use as a guide to approve or when the subcommittees give us their final recommendations, we will.
John needs one.
Oh, can I have one, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
And everyone does have a copy of those.
Thanks. So this is the criteria for committee vote on recommendations. As each subcommittee completes their recommendations and presents it to the full board, the full board will be will have to decide if it's what we're going to put into the final recommendations that go to the village board. So as we're going along, these are just some simple questions about make sure that we're finding out how many employees are going to be required, salaries, are we going to try to keep salaries, you estimate the salaries are the same as they are now, are we going to have how many part-time people for each subcommittee report, will facilities meet the needs, or are there going to be costs associated with remodeling office buildings. All that has to be in the subcommittee report so that the consultants can put it into a budget situation or for the cost of dissolution to the village. So there's a lot of minor things. We're going along at a pretty good clip, but now that we're getting closer to the end, there's always those little details. For example, somebody asked me, they live out on Gristmill, they said, are we going to keep our lighting district for Gristmill? And I said, well, I'm assuming that if you have a lighting district or a separate water district now, that will stay the same. And then he asked me what's going to happen to the village. Is that going to become a separate lighting district? And I said, I never thought of that. That's something that the administrative subcommittee is going to have to recommend to the full committee. How are we going to handle how many line items are we going to have for special districts on the town taxes? So that all comes down to the recommendations, and we're trying to think of everything as we're going along, and hopefully we will. But it's more time consuming than I thought it would be, because it's easy to come up with general ideas. To come up with fine details sometimes isn't as easy. So we're still on our still in line to try to finish when we hope to finish, but it is it's coming up to June pretty quick, and we still have a lot of work to do. So that being said, how we're going to handle this is that as each subcommittee feels they're done, they're going to give a copy of their report to us, and they're going to go through and explain what their goals and what their final recommendations are to the whole committee. Now what I want to know from you is, do you want to vote on it the same night that you get the information? Or do you want to get the information, take it home, look at it, see if there's questions, and then next week we can say we're going to vote to the following week?
Sergey, I would suggest that each subcommittee's report go to the engineering firm, and if they could packet it, go through all the numbers and packet it. I mean, the highway is pretty general. I mean, this criteria here will get us right down to the bare bones, I think.
Right. Well, you're meeting next week next Wednesday, you're meeting with the consultants to fine tune your recommendations. So when you feel that you have everything that you want in your subcommittee report, that's when you say, okay, I'm ready to present it. And all you have to do is bring a copy for all the members, and we can sit down and discuss it. Now, we're not going to do all 6 in one night. Tonight, code enforcement feels they're ready to give theirs, and courts, Thea's going to be giving the courts. So we'll go over everything. You have copies, and what I think is what we'll do is next week when we come in, that'll be the first order of business, is to discuss the recommendations of the subcommittee and either approve or question what the subcommittee has done. And then if it's approved, it goes to the consultants to put together the financial end of it.
So in the report, are we supposed to, one of the questions I have is, are we supposed to, in our report, say, look, we feel that substantial funding can be saved here, or we feel that, it might take a little more here?
You're going to give us the recommendation and how you feel if you're talking about public works,
Yeah, highway.
highway, public works combined, you're going to give us the recommendation of how you feel that after the village is dissolved, the best way for that to be operated.
Good.
And if you feel that it's better to have fewer full-time and more part-time, whatever you decide. I'm going to be hearing it for the first time when you present it. If you present it next week, that'll be the first time we all hear it, and then we can if we have questions, we'll question you. But we want to make sure that you're satisfied with your recommendations so that you feel that when you hand them to us, it can go into the final report.
So Sergey, back to your original question. Once, like tonight, we'll get the 2 reports from the code enforcement and the justice. Speaking for myself, I'd like to see it, hear it, and then give us a look at it.
You have a copy, or you will have copies, so that you can take it home and read it.
Okay.
We're going to, each person, the chairman of the subcommittee, will basically go through what they're presenting. And if you have some basic questions now, you can ask the questions now. Because I don't want to be here until 11 o'clock, but it is early. If we get these 2 taken care of tonight, that's 2 down, then we can go to a couple of more next week. And all you have to do is let me know before Thursday if you're ready to present. So, that being said, is there anything that you have to say, or?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
So I'm sorry, just one question, Sergey. So back to what Jim was saying. So once we get our plan, we approve it here at the committee level. We're going to give it to the ladies at MRB. They're going to put the numbers to the plan,
Right.
and then present it back to us, to the committee.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, but because there is potential for there to be implications from decisions made regarding one service area on another service area. My thought is that once all the recommendations are completed, there may be some issues to discuss, for instance, facilities. We may find in the course of the series of recommendations that that someone makes an assumption about the reuse or the,
enough space or
space allocation that perhaps conflicts with someone else's recommendation. That's something that the committee is going to have to discuss and kind of work through. So because of the potential for that, it makes sense to kind of work through all the recommendations, come to a consensus as a committee about what the plan talks about service delivery wise, then it makes sense for us to begin the financial and come back literally with, okay, this is of the overall plan that's been recommended, this is the fiscal implication of all services across all areas. Does that make sense?
It does, and therefore, if you have, if we would just jump right into the fiscal piece, and there are things, certain aspects that didn't fit, then suddenly after we've done that calculation, we're going to come back and you're going to make a different decision. So it's just as easy as Diana said to get the plan set. This is what it's going to look like. Then we can start cranking those numbers and tax impacts.
And that doesn't mean that there can't be a later discussion, a later
Sure.
revision, but it alleviates an awful lot of the horse and cart kind of, issues that might arise if we try to do it, piecemeal.
And one example would be like the water and sewer department. The water department doesn't have any employees per se under water, but they're part of public works. So we can't really come up with budget information until we know what public works is going to do for manpower, and you take that into consideration. Right? Okay. So if Joan is ready, we're going to go through the code enforcement.
Everybody should have a copy of it. I passed them out tonight, and it's the one dated May 23rd. Chief Bogan and I met on 5/10/13 with Chairman Sergey Bartashevitz, Diane Smith, and Connie Solitz. Pursuant to this meeting, Chief Bogan and I would like to submit the following. The code enforcement position has been a shared service being done on a part-time basis by Robert Darkangelis, a New York State certified code enforcement officer, with the help of a clerical person. In this case, it's been a village clerical person. Mr. Darkangelis is employed by the town in a part-time position with his salary being paid by the town. Then 80% of his salary is being reimbursed back to the town by the village. Any revenues gained are divided as to their origin. Bob Darkangelis is part-time code enforcement officer, is allowed 20 hours a week. Mr. Darkangelis was put in this position when a full-time village employee sharing services with the town was unable to perform the duties because of a long-term disability resulting from a work-related injury. He has been able to perform these duties as a part-time employee because of his ready availability while on duty at his full-time position as driver for the Lyons Fire Department. The duties of the code enforcement officer are extensive. The state of New York requires municipalities to perform occupancy inspection of public gathering places each year and to inspect retail spaces and multifamily dwellings with common areas on a 3-year cycle. These inspections are done in accordance to state directive. The village additionally requires inspections of duplexes and non-owner occupied single-family dwellings on a 3-year cycle. The code enforcement officer is responsible for these inspections and ensuring that they comply with occupancy requirements and fit safety codes. Got a typo there.
Fire. Is it supposed to be
Yeah.
fire?
Oh, fire safety codes, yeah, I got a typo there.
Throw an E in there.
The code enforcement officer is also responsible for issuing building permits and ensuring compliance with current zoning laws. Building permits and inspections are required for an assortment of building improvements such as addition, roof and window replacements, renovations, and demolitions. During a construction process, he is required to make multiple site visits to ensure that there is compliance with the New York State Building Code. This could include, but is not limited to, inspecting footers, framing, insulation, and plumbing. Last of all, the most public and demanding responsibility of the code enforcement officer is responding to citizens' reports and patrolling to find property maintenance violations. Local property maintenance requires certain attention be paid to a certain standard of aesthetics, especially in residential areas. The obvious items are junk cars, litter, rubbish, lawn maintenance, occupancy, use, and numbers of persons per unit. In order to maintain quality of life within a community, it is necessary to enforce these standards on the minority who cannot or will not police themselves. The code enforcement officer must be responsible to calls for service from the citizens and be prepared to take enforcement action when necessary. This could include issuing appearance tickets or applying for arrest warrants to the local courts. Bob had to go to training to become a code enforcement officer and also had to pass a civil service exam. This is a requirement for the position. In order to accomplish the purpose of the code enforcement officer, the subcommittee, Dick Bogan and I, recommend that the position be offered full-time with benefits in a salary that is comparable to other municipalities in the area. The subcommittee also recognizes for a clerical person to facilitate scheduling, correspondence, and provide an office-based point of contact for the public. The subcommittee feels there should be at least a 20-hour block of clerical time, either in a part-time position or shared with office staff that already has other clerical responsibilities. Office space is currently available at the village office building and could continue at that location in consideration of existing property files. As it has been done in the past, the subcommittee feels that a vehicle should be provided for the code enforcement officer. If no vehicle is provided, then mileage maintenance for the code enforcement officer's personal vehicle should be considered. We also expect that the town would take the full 2 years allowed by statute to review and adopt new codes that would cover the entire community instead of the separate codes that now exist. The subcommittee feels there is no practical post-dissolution alternative to maintaining a town code enforcement officer. There are no county services available, and sharing a person with other municipalities has been tried in the past with little public satisfaction.
Thank you. Does anyone have any, after a quick,
Questions?
oh yeah, does anybody have any questions now, or do you want?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You know, he has, on the second paragraph, he's been able to perform their duties part-time because he's available at full-time position as a driver at the firehouse. Is he being paid here at the firehouse and then going on calls for the code? Is that how it's working? How's it working?
Well, he's originally a town employee anyway.
No, when he's on duty at the firehouse, he is not going out and doing calls for code enforcement or inspections, that type of thing.
I mean, that's what it,
He is available
If you have a
if you
question,
drive by.
they would
oh,
refer you
Sure.
down here, and Bob would answer your questions
Okay.
while he's on duty.
Yeah, but he's not going out and actually doing the duties of code enforcement while he's in his capacity as a driver.
what was the salary of the last guy, do we know?
Well, I had in the budget, it was an approximate, but they had included clerical help, so that's why I did not put an amount in there.
It's, if you look on the budget, on the wage page, it is still the old price for the full-time person from the time.
The one I found had clerical included in it, please.
Yeah, but it was also separated, Joni, I think.
Could be. I mean, I just remember seeing that, and so I know the chief kind of indicated for an amount, but the one that didn't.
If you look in the budget as opposed to the compilation of service, just in the actual budget that was released, It's going to be a separate line item there, right? Because it's in two different.
It's in building and code is.
Yeah, Mike
one
knows.
services
Yeah,
is-
he
is
was-
36,400.
We've got 36,400 total, and that includes the part-time person within the office who is
That's being
handling
charged into
the
those codes when
paperwork.
they do work there.
Yep, yep. And of course, there, along with that, there's cell phone and there's related costs for
36,400.
hospitalization.
That's
and-
for
That's basically for 1.5
1.5.
FTE. But also mirror, the other reimbursements or provisions such as cell phone and mileage reimbursement are also in that figure.
That he had a car.
He had a
Well, there's contractual.
In
Well,
contractual,
that's in the
0.4.
contractual, so that's not in that line item.
No, this is
30
strictly
Is .1 personal
wage,
services.
yeah.
probably well over 40 grand a year.
Well, there's 12, 18, 20, that's 30, and we got 54,000,
In the service breakdown.
right, in the service breakdown for the code enforcement officer and the,
But what's in
Right.
personal what shows up in personal services? That'll be the,
yeah,
so that's the 36?
30 and
For
24.
1.5 FTE for
Okay.
1.5 feet. Is that not right, Mayor?
Okay.
Can I ask?
So hopefully, Jim, that answers your question.
But I don't know what this split is. I don't know.
My question is, you're recommending full-time, and Bob's doing the job with the 20 hours, and I believe he's been doing that for a couple of years, for 20 hours. Is there enough to go to a full-time position?
You're talking just village hours now.
No,
That's
no,
the-
that's
Oh, the
town
20
hall.
hours?
That's both.
But one of the problems is with the dissolution, you have to rewrite all the codes or combine the code books. Would that be his responsibility?
No, your planning board, your town board, it's gonna be a combination of people who get
Right.
together,
That's gonna be
like
a
your
very expensive.
chief of police,
Sure.
for things that are related to police and fire
No,
and,
that's about 1.5.
I would imagine every law that's in the code book right now will have to be changed to be under the township. Because right now, you can't have a junk car in your driveway in the village, but in the town you can.
Right.
One.
No,
Well, it doesn't
two.
matter, you still can.
You have to.
So now you're gonna have to change.
When did that change?
It's been that way in the
I
township.
mean, you're gonna change every law that's in the village of Lyons.
and that's a monster. We've
Then
been
what's this thing?
working on it for, you
It's
no
ongoing.
sooner get it
Well, I
put
don't,
together and there's changes.
I don't think it's that. I mean,
It's a
why don't-
monster.
Yeah, but if you pick a community, take Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you either wipe them all off the table and start with somebody else's.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or
I think-
revamp the ones you have.
I think we would start by talking to Seneca Falls. They're already doing it.
Yeah.
So they're
So
reinventing
just
that
something
wheel.
like that. I mean,
So
we don't
let's
have
take
to
the wheel and
reinvent the
start
wheel.
there.
But there's still a lot of review.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Because it is a pretty thick booklet.
Yeah, the planning,
town down to one
planning
junk car.
boards, zoning
Right,
boards.
yeah, I agree.
You're talking about the rewriting of the code?
That's my pet peeve.
It's a fairly extensive proposition, and I
It
think
certainly is. I've done it twice in the
So,
last 35
how
years,
you-
and it's a monster.
Can you use another township's as a guideline and then go from there? Or do you start with your own and replace what you have?
Well, and I think, there was a certain prudence in the suggestion by the subcommittee that it's to some degree, the 2 years provided by statute is probably the wisest approach, because that allows the town to actually see, the implications of enforcing the village codes that they're not, previously accustomed to
Right.
having to deal with. There really are different sets of concerns in congested living areas as opposed to rural space. So there's a tremendous need to adapt that's
Right.
going to take place. As far as Seneca Falls might be a good resource, but frankly, they're in the process of doing this
Right
right now. And,
They have until December to
Yeah.
complete it.
yeah, So, I don't know that they can offer a lot of guidance in terms of, they're at the beginning of their curve in terms of doing it as well. They can certainly tell you what's become apparent in terms of issues, and that would be helpful. So I think they could be a good resource.
Yeah.
When you said they got to be done by December, have they gone through the 2 years?
That will be
This
2
will be the
years
2-year
in
period.
December, and so they've had all of that practical experience now of dealing with village code versus town code, and have come up with a pretty good idea of what needs to be tightened, what needs to be kept, what may be able to not, which I would think possibly the town of Lyons would be doing the same thing. There's a lot of similar issues, and there may be some that are unique to the town of Lyons, but it will definitely be a learning process during that time.
I mean, I would think the easiest thing, because the village is much more complicated, would probably be easiest to take the town code and place it into the village code, where it is now, to cover what we need to in the town.
Well, or at the very least, identify the conflicts first.
Yeah.
And, and then prioritize based on, on concerns. Hunting, for instance, where it's prohibited, in the village now. Things like that would certainly require some looking at. So.
In answer to your question for part-time versus full-time here, Bob's in kind of a unique we felt that Bob was in kind of a unique situation, and that if you back up a little bit, the individual that was there prior, he was there as a full-time employee in answer to public concerns and complaints from previous part-time code enforcement officers on a lack of availability. And not so much your property inspections and your reaction to your property maintenance issues, but as the building inspector who is responsible for the progress of building permits, building projects, and so on, the public really demands that they have a readily accessible contact point. Now, what Jim alluded to and what was in the report, you can be in the middle of a building project and you can call Bob's cell phone and say, hey Bob, would you consider this a home business and therefore be considered as this section of the code? And he'll say yes, no, or maybe. Where if you have an individual, let's say like animal control, where you're paying an animal control officer 20 hours a week, and it gets up that he's exhausted his 20 hours and you have an animal issue, you might have difficulty getting a response from that individual. So if you're looking to a building inspector and you're looking to have him on duty 20 hours a week, it's going to be difficult to access him outside that 20-hour-a-week window. So we felt that we had to get away from the personality and address the position. So, and that was the purpose of it.
Any other discussion?
I have a question, or discussion.
Yeah.
The halftime personnel, you said 1.5 time, right?
Well, yeah, what I've made a note of is
Clear.
1 FTE and either 0.5 FTE or PT is how I've made a note of it, because again, once other recommendations come forth, it might mean either a part-time person or it might mean a complement to another half-time, half of an FTE. Is it?
Yes.
I guess my thought and idea is, the question is this the time to discuss where that half-a-time person that's doing the job at the village would be absorbed by one of the personnel at the town?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, it might make sense to kind of hear the other recommendations and then see what might marry up.
Okay.
But certainly, you put it out on the table if you're, if you have an idea.
Well, there's a position at the town now. We don't need to know the position, but there's a position there that could absorb doing that job at no further cost.
That probably will be one of your recommendations coming out of the admin committee as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
It is.
It is. Okay.
Okay.
It's a little different than what we discussed.
Well,
Yeah.
hour-wise.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's why if we essentially keep kind of obviously we're keeping all the notes, keeping all the documentation, but, if we regard it as not necessarily 1.5, but it could be one full-time and then a part-time, or it could be one full-time and a half of another
Half of
full-time.
another.
And so we're, trying to keep those possibilities of plugging in, cross-utilizing and plugging in.
Hoping we don't end up with like an eighth left over.
Well, like the importance of that clerical person is, a little bit of scheduling, and a little bit of correspondence, but to provide a point of contact. That point of contact can be incidental to other duties.
Right.
It's a case of if there is a place to go for the public, and then the public can make contact,
Right.
the availability of that person can be incidental to other duties.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, chief, where we need that contact, not only in that department, as well as other departments within the town, so that's what we're
Yeah,
doing.
cross-utilization of personnel is traditionally the most efficient, form of delivering a service, so.
Yeah, but when you come to the window and whether you're inquiring about a burial permit or a building permit, you don't care, just as long as somebody jumps up with a piece of paper, you're happy.
Okay.
So, where do we stand? You want to review this and come back next Thursday and make a final, give a yay or nay, or do you want to do that now? Someone from the committee like to make a recommendation?
I would make a recommendation that just, in general, not to put the committee members under the gun to make a final approval or disapproval on a moment's notice here. I think that if we have these reports, I think that there should be some window in which the committee members can decide how they're going to vote here. So that's just a proposal.
I agree. That's why I brought it up about, I just want to know what your thoughts are. But that's what I was thinking. That's why I thought would be the first item of business next Thursday.
Just a little background. The town board and the village board, when we went to a full-time code enforcement officer, representatives from both boards met, and we, as we're doing now, thoroughly discussed the pros and cons of part-time versus full-time. And that committee from both of our boards decided that even though it was more expensive, that it was worthwhile to have a full-time person who would be available.
Now, a question that was brought up the other day was regarding a vehicle. There is a vehicle available for, now, is that in the budget under code enforcement, or is that a pool vehicle that's with the public works?
It's code enforcement, and that vehicle belongs to the village, and what we do is share the cost, the traditional 80-20 for gasoline.
Where is
and so
it in the
forth.
budget?
It's in the .4 contractual.
Oh, okay.
it-
We were discussing that the other day. We couldn't
Yep.
figure out exactly where that was.
yeah, that's where it is.
For gasoline,
Yeah.
for the gasoline.
For gasoline, maintenance,
Maintenance also
whatever,
there.
some sort of mileage. Even, although there isn't too much, even for the village hall, he has an office downstairs. When we had full-time person, that we were charging per square foot.
Percentage of it.
Yeah, percentage
Of the total
of
cost.
the office.
Right.
So now we're in the part-time mode, but I would assume we'd go back to contractual would be
Right.
Is the car still
including that.
Is the car still available though? The one that was there?
Yeah, he uses it every day, or when he's working, he uses it.
Okay. Very good. So you have the report, read it over, write down any questions you have. and we will take a committee vote to either accept or reject the subcommittee's recommendations. All right? Good job, thank you very much. Did you pass one on to anybody?
Actually Denise did.
Oh, okay.
It's in all the packets that Denise handed out tonight.
Like this one.
Somehow it got left out of the packet maybe, because everybody else.
You got one, Jen?
What committee are we looking
I
at?
don't have one.
Town and village
Oh,
court.
town court, I got that.
Oh, wait.
No, it's not in the front and back.
Never mind. Whoa. She got it.
There's a front and back. Oh, village. You want these?
It's,
I would have changed that.
but I gave her the new one.
Right.
The only thing they don't have,
Committee?
there's,
Oh.
I gave them the contractual stuff on tonight.
All right,
Yep.
all right.
I got it.
Okay, who's on the
Actually,
committee
it's
with
maybe
you? this
more
time?
updated
Sergey
than-
and I.
Oh, sorry.
I think this has a new update on the back page.
He's so omnipotent, I didn't think he was on
There,
this. So-
Sergey and I were this,
Is the social media top on it?
yep. It does, yeah, I didn't change, I just added on.
It's on the back of yours.
It's the same.
Okay.
Sergey and I are the court's committee, subcommittee, and the recommendation for the town and the village court is as follows: to eliminate the village court, to eliminate the acting village judge position, to eliminate the position of town court clerk, to increase the court clerk hours from 35 to 40, to increase 2 town judges' salaries, to establish a position for a court officer, to have the physical location of the court at the town court building. The justifications for our recommendations: the village court did 2,502 cases.
2052.
Oh, 2,052 cases, but maybe by now they did extra. And the town did 718 cases last year. Therefore, the 2 town justices would split the workload. Locating to the town court would solve the safety for not using the upstairs to the village court, plus there is ample parking and handicap accessible at the town court. There may be need for some remodeling due to the DJS requirements. The town would write a grant for $30,000 to cover or assist in the cost of the remodeling costs. The cost savings would be elimination of the village judge salary at $17,000, elimination of the acting village judge at $2,350, and contractual services of $7,350, bringing the elimination of the village court to $26,700. Also, cost savings would be the elimination of the salary for the town court clerk, which is $13,500, bringing the total cost savings to $40,200 for both courts.
They would still be a town court clerk, but we're just saying
We would eliminate the part-time clerk that's at the town.
that would be the part-time person would be eliminated.
Is that a recommendation from the judges?
Yes.
To eliminate that position?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Additional cost would be, and it's by law now that we have to have 2 town justice, and they make $11,000. We're recommending that their salaries would be increased to $17,000, so that would be an increase of $12,000. We're recommending that the court clerk's salary, which would be increased by 25%, which is $5,000. She would, because she's working an extra 5 hours a week, which her present salary is $21,916, and she does have full benefits.
21,000 what, 900?
$916.
Thank you.
We are also recommending additional cost of $4,000 for contractual services, and I have a list of the contractual services. We feel that the increase would be taken into consideration because there would be extra cases when combined. And the contractual services are the internet, telephone bill, the lease of the copier and maintenance fees, copier supplies such as toners, paper supplies, miscellaneous office supplies, printed supplies, the dues for the judge, meetings/conferences for both the judge and the clerk, schooling and training for the judge, postage, and if needed, an interpreter or court reporter. most of those contractual services. We're also recommending $15,000 for the cost of court officer, which both the judges feel is a safety issue, and they feel that it really is a needed position. That would be a $36,000 increase to combine the courts. In order to eliminate the village judge, we would need the village board of trustees may abolish the office of the village justice by local law or resolution subject to progressive referendum. The recommendation is if the village does not dissolve, is still elimination of the village court as outlined above.
So, if we do this, I didn't add all these up, the additional costs.
36,000.
$36,000
It's on the back.
on the back.
Oh, okay. So, we save 40,
Well, we're saving
we not gained
$4,000.
$4,000. Good job.
Correct.
Yep, good.
If we go with the court officer, correct?
Right. Now, the court officer, there are quite a few courts around that also already have a court officer there for protection. And talking to the judges, they both felt that they would feel safer when there's arraignments for county, if the county jail people are here, there's an officer accompanying the people that come from the county jail. But on other things that could, criminal court, you've got people maybe thrown out, taken out of their house for not paying rent. People that might have a dispute with a spouse or harassment charges. They said that they've been in situations that make them very uncomfortable. And at one time, the village court had a panic button. And they pushed it, and the village police officers were out, so it basically went to 911. It was half an hour before a sheriff deputy got here. And they said, fortunately, they could calm the person down, but if the person wanted to attack someone, there was no one there to prevent it from happening. And this is something that's been going on for years in other jurisdictions where they've had court officers. So it's a recommendation, and obviously the town board would make that final decision, but we thought it would be prudent to put it in our recommendations so that if that position is created, it would put into the cost of the courts. And again, we're presenting that tonight. You can think about it, and if you feel that it's not something that the full committee wants to recommend, we'll just pull it out. But as a subcommittee, we thought that it was a sound recommendation. Yes?
The $5,000 increase for the court clerk salary from 35 to 40. Do you run into a problem with your new manual for town employees by increasing the number of hours per week
35
for
to 40?
the person? And
Is your work week 35 or is 40 hours?
40 now.
All right, 40?
it's 40? I
Yes.
thought it was 32.
You handle this 40,
Oh, in the office? It's 40?
everybody,
Okay.
we can adjust from there.
And talking
Okay.
to the village court clerk, she felt that the additional 5 hours to take on the extra responsibilities, she would be sufficient to handle the workload.
Is that $21,916 her
That's
salary now?
Yes, it is.
And you're giving her a $5,000 more of a raise for 5 hours? You're
Well,
Not
giving,
5 hours.
Well, it's about 20%.
well, the 5,000 equates to $19.23 an hour, and right now she's making $12.04 an hour. So why, if you're gonna give her an extra 5 hours, why wouldn't you give her why are you giving her a $19 an hour?
Well, we just,
It doesn't equate to
our
the same
feeling
salary.
was that if a full-time employee working 40 hours a week, that is not an over-generous salary of $26,000 a year.
So you're actually giving that.
That's about a 13.
You're recommending a raise and
Right.
more hours.
Right.
Do they feel that the 21.9 is low now?
Yes. I talked to Larry about 21, because she comes in for arraignments.
During the night. She's on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, and she does it.
Yeah. If Larry gets called in for an arraignment at 2 in the morning, he calls her and she comes in. She doesn't get paid for it. She's on salary.
Does she have benefits?
Yes.
Yes.
So that 21,000 doesn't
Oh,
include her
no,
benefits?
no, that's, we're doing the same thing as anybody else. We're talking about the full-time position. It's up to the consultants to come up with the cost of the benefits. It's already in the budget. The benefit costs wouldn't go up. She was already getting that.
But do you have any idea what her present salary is with the benefits?
Yeah, it's, well, it's a little hard to break out because it's under,
Well, retirement would be about
but you
21%.
you have it. It was handed out when we did the,
It's at least 30,
She's
excuse me.
getting
Jen.
benefits right now through the village or the town?
Yeah.
Both.
it's-
oh, no,
village.
she's a village employee right now. But we're not saying that she would be the person that gets hired. We're saying that a full-time person, whoever it may be,
Right, I understand.
would be,
Sergey, in the line of the office of, officer on duty to security, in any way, maybe an officer from the police department can be there during court sessions?
we discussed that.
I think that this is one of the issues that the ladies from MRB brought up, is that you'd have to look at all these subcommittee reports and take into consideration where there may be duplication or whatever in the, although I'm not ready to present the police and or the fire this evening, because for personal reasons, we haven't been able to get
I
together.
mean, is that
to
a
review it.
consideration, you could do that?
It's a consideration in that I made a recommendation in the police that would address this issue in difference to actually creating a position. I also, at Sergey's request for his subcommittee, provided figures and requirements for that position. So the whole committee then will have to look at their recommendation from their subcommittee report and our recommendation from our subcommittee report, and decide as a whole committee which is the more viable way to address that.
Okay.
Certainly you don't want to have the judges and the judge's clerk down there on Jackson and Phelps doing the full combined volume and not have any consideration for
Right.
security. But in the public safety subcommittee does make a recommendation, and the whole committee's going to have to look at the
Now,
viability.
when's
of it.
court? Is it 2 times a week, 3 times a week?
It'll
or
be 3 times a week.
3 times a week.
They have 2 mornings and 1, they're looking at having the traffic court on a Tuesday evening
Okay.
and separating that from what they're doing now, because they said it's really not fair for working people to have to miss a day of work to come in and sit for maybe 4 hours while the criminal cases from the county court are being, from the people from the county jail are being arraigned.
Right.
So he
See, I
said,
don't know what the town procedure is, but the village changed their procedure this year just in light of that. And they have a or a traffic court on a Monday where you don't have all the criminal stuff
Right.
going on, and criminal court on a Wednesday. So
Right.
that is
Right.
taken into consideration.
but they were thinking that they would have 1, they have 3 court dates now. They would do it and maybe have it on a evening so that people wouldn't have to miss work. So that's, yes. Well, just one thing. In the breakdown that we have right now, the New York State retirement is $7,700 and the hospitalization is $6,282 in the budget. So if we increase the hours, the retirement would go up Social Security would go up, everything, so.
Is the
What
clerk
do
from
we,
the town?
what do we match, does the village match in the, what's the percentage of the match for New York State retirement?
For what, Mitch?
Is it 21%, I think?
It
Is it,
depends, well, it's different for,
Each
depending on.
What
which
tier?
one it
I
is.
know that.
Oh, okay.
And I think probably the judge is retired, correct me if I'm wrong, retired from the school,
yeah,
that he wouldn't, you wouldn't count in a retirement
I
contribution.
think the clerk is at
And she's at,
15.8%.
yeah.
Was it
she's the-
15.8?
One of the newer
There's a
systems.
great chart that the
And-
village, and if any of you want that, I certainly can give it to you.
Rick is also
Denise gave it to me.
retired, so
Right.
there wouldn't be a contribution to the, I have a question. If the current justice, the village justice, between the two positions, he makes 11 and 17, that's 28,000. Is he really willing to drop to 17?
Yes, he is.
11,000?
Yes, he is.
yeah, because his caseload would diminish greatly.
Could be split.
Why?
Be
Because
half and
he's-
They're
half.
splitting it, yeah, they would be splitting the case.
Because right now, the village court's handling 2,052 cases by
So
himself.
Rick would take,
Right.
you're considering.
You're gonna have two equal town justices instead of one village justice and two town justices. So you would be balancing it off. That's why we talked about giving a raise to the two town justices to offset the extra time they're gonna be working,
Okay.
so.
Thea, are you looking at these both being elected positions, and
Oh,
are you
that's
looking
what
at
yeah.
staggering the terms? Because currently you have a judge, or like a village justice, and then you have an acting village justice, which is an appointee.
Correct.
Are you looking to have two elected positions and possibly staggering their terms? And can you do that under the unified court system?
Town judges.
Good questions we'd have to look into.
Do you ladies know?
It's pretty much, I understand that it's dictated by statute, but we'll look at it.
Because you wouldn't want to get in a position where you're recommending two
Right.
elected positions and find out that the UCS, the court system, still requires you to have an acting justice appointment in there with a salary.
Well, we can call Clyde. They just did it a few years ago. They got rid of the village and did it.
Yeah, but do they have two elected judges? Do you know?
I'll find out for you. I'll give them a call.
Can we,
Thank you.
can we just go back to the retirement one more time?
Yes,
15%. We put into the
we
retirement.
don't have any choice.
It's
That's
called,
mandated.
By New York State.
That's mandated by New York State.
Geez, it wasn't that high when I worked at the county.
it's called up to
You
bat.
should- Some of them are 28%.
It's bad and
Yeah,
it's
but
getting
that's,
worse.
that's like to cover the retirees, right?
No, those are your
No, the
contributions.
contribution of the total salary.
28%.
Sky high.
Well, how long?
That's gotta be in tier
20-year
two.
retirement.
Till the state says.
No,
it's good.
20-year
As long as the
retirement,
state
so
says,
it's,
it says
Right,
what
it
it
could be
is,
5 years,
It's
it could be 10, it could be
expensive.
20.
right?
and that's the
Depending
system
what
they're
tier,
in.
correct? Yeah.
Right, but the new tiers, tier
For
5.
Tier
a long time.
Tier
Is it
6
that?
is
Tier
the
six,
newest
no.
one.
Yeah, I don't know how many years you have to
Indefinitely.
contribute in. Is it, I don't know.
Probably.
It's-
What's, we had the, did you say the new employees 5%, starts off at 5?
No.
No,
No,
It's tier 6 now.
we're talking about tiers.
Tier,
Where they contribute to their
It would be-
pension.
They contribute for so long, and then the state will pick it up after that.
that's the way the
But I'm not
county.
sure what the
After
tier
10
6
years.
is. I don't.
But now
I
with
don't know.
With
tier
the
6,
new-
it might be totally different.
yeah.
It might be longer.
I know
Your
the old tiers
retirement
were like 10
contributions
years.
are state mandated. Of course, there's the whole tier situation, and whether it's public employee or police and fire, that even
Right.
makes it more convoluted, but it's not a real option on the part of the municipality, what they can kick in.
Something to consider.
Well, the only option that you come into is whether, let's say as an example, you're gonna offer a 275 or I mean a 375 or a 380 or a zero, and that's with your collective bargaining agreements is what your retirement program is. But well, no matter what program you're at, there's only a couple percent one way or the other. You're still whacking it.
You probably would have to consider when you're gonna take away the one court, go to the other one, because they're elected officials and their term is their term. They're not gonna get out of their term unless there's a public referendum.
You know, what, are you talking about the village?
The dissolution.
If the village dissolves, they don't have a job.
Still.
We don't have to worry about it.
There's no term,
There's
there's
no
no term anymore.
Right?
In-
That's fine, I was just
No, but no.
thinking out loud.
Yep. No, if the village dissolves, we don't have to worry about that.
They just go to the town
Well,
and run.
if they are the two town, the
Oh,
two
yeah,
town
yeah,
are
I got you
already
now.
there.
Yeah,
Right.
Gotcha.
I was just thinking if someone was elected, say they got 15,000 a year for 2 years,
Oh, yeah.
and you do this before their 2 years are up, are they still obligated to get their other?
No, everything ceases.
In the case of dissolution, yes, as an alternative to dissolution. Yeah, it's my understanding that you have to wait until the term,
If the
until the
village
term
did not
expires.
dissolve.
Yeah, if it's dissolved, it's,
Yeah.
just follow the rules.
Yep.
So we'll put that aside now and vote on that next week as a full committee. If there's any, as Brian said, if your recommendation is not to have a town court person, police officer, then we can do that, but we probably should hear from public. I don't know, do you think you'll be ready next week for your?
I believe we will. We have to get together again, and I think that we would like to have the ladies with us when we talk to them about it. And we had hoped to get it taken care of over the weekend, but we just weren't able to connect. I think we can do ambulance if we, Brian, don't you agree we can do ambulance?
Yeah, I think
Jim, we can do ambulance presentation. But the police and fire, of course, there's a lot to that.
Right.
We want to nail that down. Before next week, will you think you'll have an answer on as to whether or not you can have 2 elected justices and
Yes.
not have the acting justice appointments?
Yeah.
So that would impact quite a little on the proposed budget.
Right.
Well, just looking at the court numbers, my first impression of the court officer, I'm not against the court officer at all. If it did go that way, I think my first act would be to contact the sheriff and say, look, guys, a lot of our situations in Lyons is because of the county. Why don't you guys divvy up and put a guy in there for us at no cost to us, to this community.
Right.
If you don't ask, you ain't gonna get it.
Right. Oh, no, I have
Keep those
no,
costs down.
I have no problem with doing that. We just think that it's important that they have a police presence there. So, it might not be as important for traffic court as it is for other things, but anything that's,
There's a big consideration, and I speak from experience, whether it's traffic court or criminal court or civil court, where you're talking about evictions. When that person makes that initial appearance and starts getting down to the business, it's a confrontational situation.
right.
And it would be comforting for the judicial staff to have somebody close by.
That's what they want.
Yeah, we agree. That's why it's in our recommendation. So,
Did Newark have an officer in their court system?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but there was a staffed office a staircase away. You always had police officers on staff in the office when court was in session. As to whether they were upstairs in court or, like Sergey says, the button away, they're there right in the building down the hall. So that's a consideration. All the officers were not obligated to answer calls for service or be on patrol.
any other comments? Okay, so we'll bring those into discussion next week and we can vote on them. So as we stand, we have
Did you want to do the names?
Do I-
I can do the ambulance this evening
All right.
from the Public Safety Subcommittee.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to do that all at once, or...
Well, why don't we get that out of the way?
Okay.
All right. The consultants has asked the Public Safety Subcommittee if they've addressed animal control. And no, we have not. Animal control is the responsibility of the town by law, whether you have a town only or if you have a town and a village. The town collects dog licensing fees, and in such is responsible by statute for animal control. It would be the same as incidental cemetery maintenance. That's not a responsibility of the village. It's a responsibility of the town, and it's not impacted by dissolution.
Chief, all I'm saying is that as part of the function of the public safety function, and it's part of the town budget under public safety, whether you say it's going to remain the same or whatever, as public safety, it's actually part.
It's just in the number.
It's in the number.
It's
in the number for public safety.
The total.
So next week, when you're doing your other two, the fire protection and the police department, if you could have a one-paragraph item outlining that animal control is part of public safety
Remain
and
unchanged.
Yeah.
will remain unchanged. Basically what you're going to say about the ambulance corps.
Sure.
Well, just something in writing so it will be in our final recommendations.
The Public Safety Subcommittee makes a recommendation on the ambulance service. We stand by the preliminary report previously submitted regarding the town ambulance. The Village of Lyons currently enjoys emergency medical services from the Town of Lyons Ambulance Service. The ambulance service is maintained as a town function and services the needs of both the town and village. It is the opinion of the subcommittee that the Town of Lyons Ambulance Service should continue unchanged. This will have little or no impact on the tax rate or fiscal consideration to the town after dissolution of the village.
Does anyone have any comments on that recommendation?
Right now, the clerical support for ambulance is
One full-time FTE, is it not?
Not quite full-time.
not quite full-time.
So-
90%.
Is there an opportunity there to cross-utilize that you might want to, I mean, should we list it as one, or should we list it as going forward?
Or at least take, you can address it next week, but at least take a look at it if you'd like.
Yeah. Right now, it's about a 90-10 split.
90-10?
90% ambulance, 10% town.
So she works in the office, in the town office?
Yes.
Oh,
Her other function is deputy town clerk also,
oh, okay.
but her major function is ambulance billing.
All right.
Okay.
So, does the water department feel that they're ready to present water and sewer? Or are you, I have these that were handed out. This is administration and finance and sewer department subcommittee. Is this something that we got this week?
Just, yes.
Is this your final report?
Well, I thought we were looking at maybe having the girls look at it and see if they needed any more to it. And
The
then
girls. The girls?
the professional ladies at the end of the
Okay.
table that we are hired by MRD.
The consultants.
The consultants.
I almost said that too.
They were gonna look at it for us, I hope, and give us some, and if it looks good, then it would be our final one.
Okay.
Yeah, and they just got it this afternoon.
Right, okay.
So-
No
It's
offense.
on the agenda, none taken.
None taken.
Okay, so,
Yeah, really.
young girls here, right?
That's a compliment.
Okay, so right now we have 2 down, and we have public safety, administrative and finance, public works, and water and sewer that need to be reported back to the committee. How do we stand, public safety, you think you'll be ready next Thursday? How about administrative and finance?
Are we ready?
Yeah, we're pretty well
We're
ready.
ready.
Okay.
Have you
We can
already,
do it.
have you already talked to the consultants and pretty much have it down pat where you think it's, or do you want them to review it first before they present it to us? If you feel it's ready,
I think we've gone over it, and we've gone over it with the
Okay.
consultants that
Let's be brave.
I think we're ready and would welcome any comments from
All right.
the rest of the
water and
committee.
sewer, you're done with that, and you think that that would be, after the consultants review it, you'd be ready to do it. Now, how much time do you think it would, those are your big items. You know, the water and sewer might not be as bad because that's probably not going to change much from what you already have. But the public works and the administrative and finance, I think that might be would that be a meeting all by itself, do you think? How long?
I think we're looking at two things going on here, and correct me if I'm wrong. We've done the personnel, the full-time employees, and how we would like to see that happen. The second part is the committee has just started working on the revenues and it's the debt, where they're going to go, who's going to pay them, that type of thing, our recommendations. And so we'll
That
have
won't be
two
ready.
parts.
All right.
That's not ready tonight,
All
no.
right, all right.
But it
Well, what
might
I'm-
be by the next,
Yeah, do you want to split it out? Do you want to talk about the administrative side?
I'm,
And then
Yeah, we got time.
talk about the finance
Yeah,
side
go on to
next
administrative,
time?
that's fine.
All right,
okay.
Definitely not the finance side, though.
all right. Okay,
Yeah, it does make sense.
Can everybody
Of
get
course.
copies of that?
this is the administrative and finance. that-
Right, so everybody has a copy, and I'll be happy to read it. Our committee is, of course, Brian Angelo and Thea Hall. And we are the Administration and Finance Committee. Administrative and financial services provided by the Village of Lyons Clerk Treasurer's Office, Town Clerk's Office, and Assessor's Office are all critical and cannot be eliminated. The services are received by all current village and town residents, in addition to the general public who require specialized licensing, assessment information, billing of ambulance use, water and sewer billings, tax collection, financial records for all funds and investment policies, accounting and financial reporting according to the Office of the State Controller's rules and regulations. All departmental invoicing and collections are performed by the administrative staff. All federal, New York State, and local reporting requirements are processed through the administrative offices. Some of the reports include annual New York State reports, payroll, and related reports being taxes, retirement, Social Security, hospitalization deductions, etc. Vital statistics are included monthly and annual reporting as required by government agencies, including water and sewer reports. Budgetary status reports are prepared monthly, which keep the local government boards informed as to financial condition of all the funds. It is the duty of the administrative staff to ensure that procurement policies, purchase orders, and vouchers are properly processed to ensure that public monies are used in the best interest of the taxpayers. The assessment office performs annual assessment changes, receipt of aged, veteran, agricultural, tax-exempt properties, and star exemptions, reviews of complaints on assessments, and grievance procedures. In our contractual services, one of the items that I had discussed with our committee was that we keep our auditing at the budgeted amount of $12,500 because of Village has grants that are federal and state, and there is a requirement, plus the fact when we put these two, town and village, together, there's going to be questions in the need for better auditors and accounting to make sure that we do things right. Under the executive, which includes the mayor's office and 4 trustees, they would of course be eliminated. The town supervisor and 4 councilman positions would remain. There would be the personal services for the mayor of $5,000 in contractual. $2,100 would be deleted. Would remain supervisor's wages 11, and contractual for the supervisor we would increase by $400 for various needs within the contractual expenses. Included would also be $12,000 for 4 councilmen, in deleting $12,000 for 4 trustees. So the deleted expenses for the mayor and the trustees total of $19,100 town expense, plus $400 for contractual within the town supervisor's appropriation category. The following is the recommendation of the Administration and Finance Committee as to reconfiguration of the administrative office. At the town clerk's office presently there are 3 full-time employees, and just very briefly their responsibilities. Number 1 is of course Saul, the town clerk. His existing duties would remain, and he would become the person responsible for the water and sewer billings and collections. He would be the administrative person in charge for water and sewer. And number 2, Diane is the bookkeeper at this point. And number 3 person is the ambulance clerk, which Brian just told you about. You know that her other 10% is answering the phone and waiting on customers and so forth at the window. It was from the village. Our recommendation was that 2 full-time employees would go forth to become a part of the town. The position would be as deputy town clerk. And included with that position is also the supervisor, confidential secretary, and some of the payroll and related reporting. So that's just briefly what the one position would be. The second position.
Can I say something?
Sure.
In that position, those 3 categories in that position, they may fluctuate between one and another person. That was just to make sure they were getting on the paper.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the number 2 person transferring over from the village, her position would be to do some bookkeeping, to do the code enforcement, what we talked about earlier of having a half person for working with code enforcement. Also working as part-time assessment clerk, And there is, of course, the water and the sewer billing and the collection and office clerk duties. So what we would recommend is that we eliminate the village part-time clerk, which is approximately a wage of $12,282, and also eliminate the part-time assessor clerk of present wage approximately $13,000. Our committee, of course, reviewed the fact that we're not, at the village level, we are not just general fund, we are also water and we are also sewer. So we recommend that the wages within the administrative office, except ambulance, be distributed 60% to the general fund, 20% within the water fund, and 20% to the sewer fund. It seems to be over the years that's a good recommendation as far as the village is concerned, where our time is spent, whether it's through water and sewer, etc. Office equipment, computerization, software, and maintenance would remain at the current levels. And our committee recommends that the town clerk's office would relocate to the current village hall, which houses the village clerk's office and police department. The village court and police department would relocate to the Phelps Street town office. There would be renovation-related costs in making this move. The services currently delivered would remain as per the list, and everybody had a copy of what everybody does previously submitted, and this is, of course, presented by the Administrative and Finance Committee.
So are these salaries based on the 40-hour week? Or
They're based on what they're making now. No salaries have been established, so we don't know for sure what they're going to be, but if you're going to 40 hours, everybody, then that'll be a 40-hour.
That's not, 40 hours in the handbook, but there has to be some adjustments there because that's something that would have to be worked out. Because there's going to be times when you don't need 40 hours in a position, so.
So it's like a salary. You're not getting overtime. Do your people, they don't get overtime for?
No.
Yeah, the same as at the village. They don't get overtime. Some days they'll work until 5, 6 o'clock.
The reason we put 40 hours in the handbook was to keep somebody under part-time up to 20 hours is, to consider it part-time, you'd have to be half of what a full-time position is, so 40 hours. And right now, we have 2 clerks on there that work 32 hours a week. And what our attorney said was, if you want to do part-time over a 32-hour week is 16, 17 hours, right? 16,
Yeah.
16, yeah. 16. So we wanted to bump, because our assessor's clerk was actually working 20 hours, so that would be considered not a part-time position. So we bumped it to 40 hours as a full-time position, and we can adjust from there, especially in the office staff, now that we've gone through this a little while, so there could be adjustments there.
Okay.
So they're not working 40 hours a week right now.
That's
It's in the
correct.
handbook at 40 for legal reasons when it comes to part-timers.
And if we need somebody for 40 hours also, yes.
So if someone else gets hired in the future, they might work 40.
They might work 40, yes.
And the other ones might work 32.
Or they might work 35. You know, it really depends on the need of the people, so there's got to be some give and take.
So that's flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility, yeah.
I just asked Brian Green, it says the village court and police department would relocate. I thought there wouldn't be a village court at this point.
Our present village court would be, well,
Yeah.
that
The court,
part of it.
the whole court would be down at the new town
Yeah,
offices, and the police department would be at the town offices. Now, a clerical would come up to the village offices, is what they're looking at.
probably the village word could be deleted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
yes,
just
I
say
think
court,
that's,
that'd be better.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Actually, Jim just asked me, and it's an excellent question. Where would you propose having town board meetings?
I would think it'd be right where the village has them now, at this point, without cost involved, without doing any remodifications.
Only that space there would be some excellent space for office usage on the same floor and so on.
And I think it would be open to anything. I mean, that is just a quick off, just three of us meeting, that was kind of our discussion.
We just,
So you really don't have anywhere that you feel you would need to have those meetings, just where space would permit.
I would think so. I would think you want to keep the cost down as much as possible, and maybe look for grants down the road if you want to switch something.
You're having them in the courtroom now down there. Kenny Pullen just did some work down there.
That's
but
correct,
you're still
yeah.
having the town meetings there.
And the other thing we could look at is, because we're dissolving, if it dissolves, we could look for grants out there. We could look for an elevator grant and put an elevator in that building if we could get it. Just different options. But I think the major thing is to keep the cost as low as possible for as long as possible, and get grants to do anything like that. That's just a recommendation from our committee, open to anything.
And John, I hope you noticed that our recommendation for the salary for a 40-hour position of $26 an hour for court is pretty darn cheap compared to what the other village
Where
and
the
town
village board meets is some
employees
good
are.
space.
I wasn't questioning that.
Oh, okay.
Sergey. I just look at things and
Right.
I put things in perspective. And
Right.
to give someone a raise for 5 hours, I did my math,
Right.
and it equated a little different than an hourly rate.
All right, okay.
I wasn't saying it was good or bad, I was just crunching numbers.
Right. Right. So does anybody have any other questions regarding the recommendations as far as the personnel portion of the Administration and Finance Committee report? Okay. Well,
I'm sure next week I'll have questions.
everybody's
Digest.
right. Everybody has their homework, ahead of them, and the committees that have not given their reports, if you could try to get together with the consultants and nail down your final report.
So the police department could move it up on Phelps Street then, right?
Right. That's the recommendation.
That's the recommendation.
The courts and police department would be in the current town hall, and all the administrative and clerical services at the town hall would move to the current village offices. So, because obviously the police department's in there now, so there's plenty of room when they move out for offices in that area.
Yeah.
And,
Wouldn't it be nice to have one building and have everybody in it?
Be nice.
well, it would be nice.
Down the road,
Do we
maybe.
have one around?
There's a building over on Elmer Street that's just begging to be used.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
The old social services building, nothing there to,
Well, they're still using it.
still using it? It's all,
Yeah, their social services building has, are the Veterans Administration still there?
Probation.
No, they big down.
Probation's gone.
Well,
Probation's
but
gone,
veterans are-
veterans is gone.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, data processing is there, and
Abstract.
Treasurer.
yeah, treasure.
treasurer.
And
Real property.
There just seemed like a lot of room there. Just, it'd be nice to have everybody under one roof. I'm
Well,
sure.
I don't think they're using the bottom, are they?
No.
Because
No,
when
that's-
probation
yeah.
moved out, that was the reason.
That was because there was a health hazard too.
Pretty correct.
I was there down, I worked there.
Correct.
long time.
Everybody was, it's no ventilation down there.
Got that little
so-
musty smell to it,
Yeah, right.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the town clerk told us too that when people are trying to find them on Phelps Street, there's, not that we're that big, but they'll say, what are you doing way out here? So we were thinking if your offices were downtown, you could find them.
Yeah,
But
but we,
they do say
we had a
that-
problem there
I know.
with parking and
Right.
the back entrance.
Right.
But we're thinking if you take the courts and the police and move them where there is parking.
We only paid $1.
It's just nice to have police right downtown too.
You know, Jim, I told you, the man gets out of his office and runs to the building. I think it's wonderful.
Well, I just have to get a little road work in so I can run for it, right?
I agree.
So do you have any words of wisdom for us? Diane, Connie?
Plugging away.
And when you're ready to talk, just give us a holler.
Well, so as of right now, we will be,
I had them all
Hey,
sitting
come on, I want to close up. Jim,
No, I didn't.
Jim, close the meeting. All right, so no more talking. You can talk after we close the meeting. We're going to vote on these recommendations next week that were given to us tonight. Anybody that has the final recommendations for next Thursday, we'll go over them. And if we complete that next week, then we throw everything at our consultants and we'll take a week off while they go through the budget process and throw all the facts and figures together, because it's going to take you, I imagine, a while to get this done. So,
A lot of plugging in.
right, so next week, hopefully, we will complete our recommendations from the subcommittees. And then we will have to get together for a short meeting the week after to approve all the subcommittee reports. And then we will turn everything over to Diane and Connie.
Now, are you going to, when everything's approved, you're going to collect all this data and put it in a folder, a brochure type, with everything?
Well, yeah, we'll help compile it, but more importantly, we're going to be attaching the fiscal implication to each, to each section. So that'll be what we come back and want to review with the committee, just to make sure that everyone
The final presentation will be you will do the final presentation on whatever it is.
Well, basically,
PowerPoint.
our subcommittee reports that have been approved by the full committee will be presented to the village board, along with the financial end of it that the consultants will be doing. So,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and the town board.
And the
as well.
town board.
There's a scheduled joint meeting.
right.
What is the step after we get done compiling all this information? This panel approves every one of the subcommittee's proposals. And we find out there's no savings. What do we do?
That is,
Because as of right now, sir, I don't see any savings in what was been proposed yet.
well, there's a few savings in
Jack, come on.
combined.
What was said today, there's not much savings yet.
Well, there's not huge savings.
I'm not saying it good or bad, I'm just looking at the numbers, because that's why I bring my
The
calculator.
services might be better,
I don't, I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm not disagreeing with that, I'm just, what is the next
What we're doing is
position?
we present it to the village board, and once we present it to the village board, we're done. We present it to the community. If they decide that, why are we gonna go through all this and only save $50,000 a year? Well, they might say, well, let's keep the village. But that's up to the voters. We have nothing to do. We are doing the job of presenting a plan to the village board and to the community. And after that's done, we walk away.
Just wanted to know.
We only can do what we can do.
I agree.
If you find in your departments that you can save $500,000, fine. If it's only a $10,000 savings, fine. Whatever we get together, whatever we present is what it is. And that's why we're here.
Okay.
So, we don't have any control, we just present it and then it's up to the voters.
A
So,
lot of the savings going to come after, I won't get into that.
all right, well, that's something we can discuss when we get together to do our final presentation to the village. If you say, Initially, we're not looking at a huge saving, but maybe 5 years down the road, projecting, maybe there'll be bigger savings. If you want to put that in the report, we can put that in the report, if we all agree on it. But, yeah, we're not done yet. We've only done 2 of the 6 subcommittees. So it's not a very good time to say, I don't see any cost savings, because we're not done yet. When we're done, then we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, these are the savings or these are not the savings. But it's too early to make that projection.
And I think that some of the bigger departments, like the highway and public safety, are still to come. Those are the big departments.
The administrators, you already cut positions and saved money. So I think we're going in the right direction. We're doing what we were supposed to do. And I think everybody, I thank everybody for putting in the time and effort that you have, because this is the real nitty-gritty, getting down to all the details. So, on that note, meeting's adjourned.
Don't hesitate.